Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm delighted to be joining you today from West Los Angeles. Let me just see if anybody's here. I want to see the bubbles. Here we go. Good. I'm seeing names popping up, so I know you're here. Great. Awesome. Allison sent me an email yesterday. Or was it the day before? The days are all sort of blending into one. I think it was yesterday. She sent me an email yesterday and asked if I would read today from By the Shores of Silver Lake. And Allison needed to do some things today, so I was delighted to say yes and step in. I've missed doing this. So here we are, and I love that we're up to, that Allison has gotten you up to chapters 14 and 15 in By the Shores of Silver Lake, which is really a fun book. The chapter of the Surveyor's House is what we're going to start with today, and I love this because I'm sure many of you have visited DeSmet. And if you visited DeSmet and gone to the Laura Ingalls Wilder Memorial Society, you have had the opportunity to tour the Surveyor's House. And those of us who have been there, I've been in it many times. And I love the way that the book, the way Laura writes the book, and the way she writes about the Surveyor's House, rather, is very reflective of exactly what you see when you step into the Surveyor's House in DeSmet. So it has a very authentic feeling about it, as all things that Laura writes. They all feel authentic. I'm just looking at some of the names popping up here on the list. Carol Fink says, "Hi, Dan." Who's Dan? She's kidding. She means hi, Dean. Anyway, I'm delighted, and let's start now. This is The Surveyor's House, chapter 14, from By the Shores of Silver Lake. There was no need to pack anything, for the Surveyor's House stood on the north shore of the lake, not half a mile from the shanty. Laura could hardly wait to see it. When she had helped to put everything neatly into the wagon, and Mary and Carrie and Ma and Grace were in it, Laura said to Pa, "Please, can't I run ahead?" "May, Laura," Ma said. "Really, Charles, don't you think—" "Nothing can hurt her," Pa said. "We'll have her in sight all the way. Follow the lake shore, Flutter Budget, and don't worry, Caroline, we'll be there in 2 shakes of lamb's tail." So Laura ran ahead. Straight against the steady wind she ran. Her shawl flapped in the wind behind her, and the cold of the wind poured through her. She felt her blood thin and chill in the wind, and then she felt it warm and pulsing strong, and her breath throbbed hard in her chest. She passed the spoiled spots where the camp had been. The earth was hard under her pounding feet and rough with dead grass. No one else was anywhere near. Everybody had gone now. The prairie, the whole vast prairie, and the great sky and the wind were clear and free. Even the wagon was left behind now, but it was coming. Pa looked back, and Pa waved to her. When she stopped running, she could hear the sound of the wind in the grasses and the lippity-lapping of lake water. She hippity-skipped on the short dry grass along the shore. She could shout if she wanted to. No one else was there. She shouted, "It's ours! It's ours!" The shout seemed loud in her throat, but in the air it was thin. The wind took it away, perhaps. Or the stillness of the empty land and sky would not be disturbed. The surveyor's boots had worn a path through the grasses. It was smooth and soft to Laura's feet. She bent her shawled head to the wind and padded along the path, hurrying. It would be fun to see the surveyor's house all by herself. It stood up in front of her suddenly. It was a big house, a real house with 2 stories and glass windows. Its up and down boards were weathering from yellow to gray, and every crack was battened, as Pa had said. The door had a china knob. It opened into the lean-to over the back door. Laura opened the door and peeped in. Then she pushed the door back along the curved mark it had worn in the board floor, and she went in. This house had board floors, not as comfortable to bare feet as the earth floor of the shanty, but not so much work to keep clean. The largeness of the empty house seemed to wait and listen. It seemed to know that Laura was there, but it had not made up its mind about her. It would wait and see. Against its walls, the wind made a lonely sound, but that was outside the house. She tiptoed across the lean-to and opened a door on its farther side. Laura looked at the large front room. Its board walls were still yellow inside, and sunshine from its west window slanted yellow on the floor. A cool light came in from the window to the east beside the front door. The surveyors had left their stove. It was a larger stove than the one Ma had brought from Plum Creek. It had 6 lids and on top and 2 oven doors, and it stood all set up with its stovepipe in place. Spaced on the wall beyond it were 3 doors. All of them were shut. Laura tiptoed across the wide floor and softly opened one door. There was a small room with a bedstead in it. This room had a window, too. Softly, Laura opened the middle door. She was surprised. Steeply up in front of her went a stair, just the width of the door. She looked up and saw the underside of a slanting roof high overhead. She went up a few steps, and a big attic opened out on both sides of the stairs. It was twice as big as the large room downstairs. A window in each gable end lighted the whole empty place under the roof. That made 3 rooms already, and still there was another door. Laura thought that there must have been a great many surveyors to need so much space. This would be by far the largest house she had ever lived in. I love that description. When you are in the surveyor's house and you're standing over by the kitchen, that little kitchen area where the stove is, and you look back across the room and you see the 3 doors, and she's described the first 2 doors already. I loved the first time I went up into the attic. I mean, these are very narrow, steep stairs that you climb up. And when you get to the top, you turn around, and behind you is the whole open space of the upper part of the house. And I think my recollection is it's sort of a slanted floor. It's by no means flat and level. And of course, they have 2 beds set up there like the ones that Mary and Laura and Carrie slept in. Well, they're up there, but I just love these descriptions. It's great. Okay, so now she's come down from the attic. She opened the 3rd door. A squeal of excitement came out of her mouth and startled the listening house. There before her eyes was a little store. All up the walls of that small room were shelves, and on the shelves were dishes and pans and pots and boxes and cans. All around under the shelves stood barrels and boxes. The first barrel was nearly full of flour. The second held cornmeal. The third had a tight lid and was full of pieces of fat, white pork held down in brown brine. Laura had never seen so much salt pork at one time. There was a wooden box full of square soda crackers and a box full of big slabs of salted fish. There was a large box of dried apples and 2 sacks full of potatoes and another big sack nearly full of beans. This is sort of fun, because we read Farmer Boy together, and the way Laura describes food in Farmer Boy, it's really finished. I mean, we read about the raw materials that went into the meals, but really Laura fixated on the prepared food and how beautiful it was on the table, and the smells, and all of that. That was just wonderful. And here in the surveyor's house, she's talking about food again, but it's much simpler food, and it's sort of raw materials, and just much, much simpler than what she writes about with what Ma prepared, with what Mrs. Wilder prepared for Almanzo when he was a little boy. Okay, so we continue on. The wagon was at the door. Laura ran out shouting, "Oh, Ma, come quick and see. There are so many things, and a big attic, Mary, and a stove and crackers, soda crackers." Ma looked at everything, and she was pleased. "It's very nice, I'm sure," she said, "and so clean. We can get settled here in a jiffy. Bring me the broom, Carrie." Pa didn't even have to set up a stove. He put Ma's stove in the lean-to outside the back door where the coal was. Then, while Pa built a fire, they arranged the table and chairs in the front room. Ma set Mary's rocking chair by the open oven door. Already that good stove was giving off heat. And in the warmer corner, Mary sat holding Grace and amusing her to keep her out of the way while Ma and Laura and Carrie were busy. Ma made the big bed on the bedstead in the bedroom. She hung her clothes and Pa's on nails in the wall there and covered them neatly with a sheet. Upstairs in the large low attic, Laura and Carrie made 2 neat beds on the bedsteads there, one for Carrie and the other for Laura and Mary. Then they carried their clothes and their boxes upstairs. They hung the clothes on the gable wall by one window, and under it they set their boxes. Everything was neat now. So they went downstairs to help Ma get supper. My computer's chiming. Don't worry about that. They went down to help Ma get supper. Pa came in bringing a large, shallow packing box. "Well, what's that for, Charles?" Ma asked, and Pa said, "This is Grace's trundle bed." "It's the only thing we needed," Ma exclaimed. "The sides are high enough to hold her covers tucked in," said Pa, "and low enough to go under our bed in the daytime, like any trundle bed," said Ma. Laura and Carrie made up a little bed for Grace in the packing box and slid it under the big bed and pulled it out again for the night. The moving in was done. Supper was a feast. The surveyor's pretty dishes made the table gay. Little sour cucumber pickles from a jar from the surveyors had left made the warmed-over roast duck and fried potatoes taste different. And after they were eaten, Ma stepped into the pantry and brought out, "Guess what?" she said. She set before each of them a little dish of canned peaches and 2 soda crackers. "We'll have a treat," she said, "to celebrate living in a house again." It was fine to be eating in such a large place, with a board floor and the glass windows glittering black against the night outside. Slowly, slowly, they ate the smooth, cool peaches and the sweet golden juice and carefully licked their spoons. Then the dishes were quickly cleared away and washed in the handy pantry. The table's leaves were dropped, the red and white checked cloth spread, and the bright shining lamp set on its center. Ma settled with Grace in the rocking chair, and Pa said, "Oh, this makes a fella feel like music. Bring me the fiddle box, Laura." He tightened and tuned the strings and rosined the bow. Winter evenings were coming again when Pa played the fiddle. He looked around contentedly at them all and at the good walls that kept them comfortable. I must manage something for curtains, Ma said. Pa paused, with the bow poised above the fiddle. Don't you realize, Caroline, that our nearest neighbor to the east is 60 miles away and our nearest west is 40 miles? When winter shuts down, they might as well be further off. We've got the world to ourselves. I saw only one flock of wild geese today, flying high and fast. They weren't stopping at any lakes, not they. They were hurrying south. Looked to me like the last flock of the season, so even the geese have left us. His fiddle bow touched the strings and he began to play. Softly Laura began to sing. Now, I'm not going to attempt to sing this song for you, but this is Mary of the Wild Moor that they're doing. One night when the winds blew bitter across the wild moor, young Mary, she came with her child wandering home to her father's door, crying, Father, oh pray let me in. Take pity on me, I implore, or the child in my arms will die from the winds that blow across the wild moor. And it goes on. I won't read it all. Pa stopped. That song doesn't fit, he exclaimed. What was I thinking of? Now, here's something worth singing. Merrily, the fiddle sang, and Pa sang with it. Laura and Mary and Carrie sang along too. Now, this is a song, I'm not sure what this song is, but I'm going to do something that I haven't done in this. I recorded last year the Gumtree Canoe. So just for fun, I'm going to play a little of it for you. And hopefully you'll be able to hear it. But this is Gumtree Canoe, and this is my version of the vocal using the Pa's fiddle music as the basis of it. Here it is.
On the Tombaby River, so bright I was born, in a hut made of husks from the tall yellow corn. And there I first met with my Laura, so true, and I rode her about in my Gumtree canoe, singing roll, away, roll, water so blue, like a feather float in my Gumtree canoe. All the day in the field, the soft cotton I sow, I think of my Laura and sing as I go. Oh, I catch her bird with a wing of true blue, and at night sail her round in my Gumtree canoe, singing roll away, roll, water so blue, like a feather will float in my Gumtree canoe.
Okay, I'm going to stop that there. Yeah, we'll stop there. I don't know. It just, when I saw in the lyric of the song that was coming, mention of a canoe, it made me think of Gumtree Canoe. So I just thought I would share a little of that with you. But what Laura writes here is that Laura and Mary and Carrie sang along with Pa this song about traveling. And of course, the Ingalls did a lot of traveling in their time. They didn't do it in a canoe, they did it in a covered wagon, but they did a lot of traveling. And they did it together as a family, and they survived all the difficult times that they had, and had some beautiful times too. on the prairie as they live their lives. So I'll continue. After the song is over, and the last line of the song is, "But paddle your own canoe," is well, let me read the last stanza of the song. "Then love your neighbor as yourself, as the world you go traveling through, and never sit down with a tear or a frown, but paddle your own canoe." "Well, that's what we'll be doing this winter," said Pa. "And we've done it many times before, haven't we, Caroline?" "Yes, Charles," Ma agreed. "And we haven't always been so comfortable and so well provided for." "Everything's snug as bugs in a rug," said Pa, tuning the fiddle. "I piled bags of oats across one end of the stable to make a small place for the cow and the team. They'll have all they can eat, too, and they'll be warm and cozy. Yes, we've got everything to be thankful for." Then he played the fiddle again. He played on, jigs and reels and hornpipes and marches. Ma laid Grace in her little trundle bed and shut the door. Then she sat idly rocking, listening to the music. Ma and Mary and Laura and Carrie listened until they were full of music. No one spoke of bedtime because this was their first evening in the new house, all of them, all by themselves on the prairie. At last Pa laid the fiddle and the bow in the fiddle box. As he shut down the lid, a long, mournful, lonely howl came from the night outside the window. Very near it was. Laura sprang to her feet. Ma rushed to comfort Grace's screaming in the bedroom. Carrie sat frozen, white, with big, round eyes. It's only a wolf, Carrie," Laura said. There, said Pa. "A fellow'd think you'd never heard a wolf before." "Yes, Caroline, the stable door is well fastened." So in the chapter, they have this happy arrival at the surveyor's house. They get settled, they have a delicious meal, they enjoy Pa's fiddle music. And just to remind everybody that this is not all going to be easy and perfect, Laura ends the chapter with the howl of a wolf, to let them know, that to remind us all that the Ingalls are in a dangerous place where anything could happen if they're not careful. I think we see that over and over again in the books, that the Ingalls family, in fact, everybody who lived out on the prairie, lived on this very delicate balance between life and death, between survival and struggle. And it was always on the razor's edge for them. And this is yet another example of that. Chapter 15, The Last Man Out. Next morning the sun shone, but the wind was colder, and there was a feeling of storm in the air. Pa had come from doing the chores and was warming his hands by the stove while Ma and Laura put breakfast on the table, when they heard a wagon rattling. It stopped by the front door. The driver shouted, and Pa went out to him. Through the window, Laura saw them talking in the cold wind. In a moment, Pa came back and hurriedly put on his overcoat and his mittens while he said, "Now, we've got a neighbor I didn't know about last night. An old man, sick and all alone. I'm going out there now. I'll tell you all about it when I get back." He drove away with the stranger, and it was some time before he came walking home. "It's getting colder," he said, dropping his coat and mittens on a chair and bending over the stove to warm himself before he unwound his muffler. "Well, it's a good job done. That teamster's the last one out. He came all the way from the Jim River and didn't find a soul. Everyone along the line is going. Last night, when dark caught him, he saw a light about 2 miles north of the grade and drove to it on chance of finding a place to stay." Well, Caroline, he found a claim shanty and an old man all by himself. His name was Woodworth. He has consumption. Oh, now, what are we seeing on the screen here? Are we getting a little, somebody's playing a little back to school here. Okay, fun. His name is Woodworth. He has consumption and came out here to take the Prairie climate cure. He's been living on his claim all summer and was going to stay all winter. Well, he's so feeble the teamster tried to get him out. Told him it's his last chance, but Woodworth wouldn't go. So when the teamster saw our smoke this morning, he stopped to see if he couldn't get somebody to help him persuade the old man. Caroline, he was skin and bones, but bound and determined to stick to the Prairie cure. Said it was the one cure the doctors recommended as pretty near surefire thing. Folks come from all over the world to take it, said Ma. Yes, I know, Caroline. It's true enough, I guess. These prairies are about the only thing that cures consumption. But if you'd seen him, Caroline. No, he wasn't in any shape to stay alone in the claim shanty 15 miles from a neighbor. The place for him is with his own folks. Anyhow, the teamster and I packed him up and loaded him and his things into the wagon, lifted him in as easy as if he was Carrie here. In the end, he was glad to be going. He'd be a sight more comfortable with his folks in the East. He'll nearly freeze to death riding in the wagon this cold day, Ma said, putting more coal on the fire. He's dressed warmly, wearing a good overcoat. We wrapped him in blankets besides the heat of the bag of oats and a heated bag of oats for his feet. He'll make it all right. That teamster is one fine fella. Thinking of that old man going out with the last teamster, Laura really knew how deserted the country was. It would take them 2 long days to get to the Big Sioux River. All the way between the Big Sioux and the gym, there was nobody at all except them there in the surveyor's house. Pa, did you see the wolf tracks this morning? Laura asked. Yeah, plenty of them. All around the stable, said Pa. Big tracks, too. Must be buffalo wolves. But they couldn't get in. All the birds have gone south, and the antelope were scared away by the men working on the grade, so the wolves will have to move on, too. They won't stay where they can't kill anything to eat. After breakfast, he went to the stable, and as soon as the housework was done, Laura put on her shawl and went too. She wanted to see the wolf tracks. She had never seen such huge ones and deep. Those wolves must be very big and heavy. Buffalo wolves are the largest wolves on the prairie and very fierce, Pa told her. I'd hate to meet one without a gun. He was looking the stable over carefully to see that every board was nailed fast. He drove in more nails to make the walls solid, and he put an extra bolt on the door. If one gets broken, the other might hold, he said. Snow began to fall while Laura handed him nails, and he hammered them in. The wind blew strong and keen, but it was a straight wind, not a blizzard wind. Still, it was so cold they could not talk. At supper in the warm house, Pa said, I don't believe the winters are going to be so bad out here. Seems like the blizzards sort of draw down through western Minnesota. We're farther west out here. And they say that 3 degrees west is as good as 1 degree south. After supper, they all gathered in the warmth of the stove. Ma rocked Grace slowly to and fro, and Laura brought Pa the fiddle box. Now the happy winter evenings were begun. Hail Columbia, happy land, Pa sang with the fiddle. Hail ye heroes, heaven-born band. Firm united let us be, rallying round our liberty. As a band of brothers joined, peace and safety we shall find. He looked at Mary sitting quietly with the beautiful empty eyes and folded hands in her rocking chair by the oven. What shall I play for you, Mary? I'd like to hear Highland Mary, Pa. Softly, Pa played a verse. Now, Mary, help sing, he said, and they sang together. That's a very pretty song. You know, all this music was, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but this, a lot of this music was was recorded by was recorded for a series of albums for the Pa's Fiddle Project, and this performance of Highland Mary is done by Deborah Packard in the Happy Land CD, and it's my wife Catherine is trying to say something to me here. I'm broadcasting live to the world, honey. What's going on?
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Catherine says hi.
I just was checking on you to see if you're still doing that.
Oh, I'm all good. We're on.
Okay, well, how long do you think you'll be?
Probably another 10 minutes or so.
Okay, I'll see you then.
Okay.
Bye, everybody in the world.
Catherine says bye, everybody in the world. Anyway, I was saying that the Deborah Packard performance of Highland Mary and so many other pretty songs are on the Happy Land CD, and then there's another one, Arkansas Traveler, which is the music of Little House on the Prairie. And then there's another album called Charles Ingles' American Fiddler, which is all fiddle music, and it's beautiful. So anyway, so that was a little bit of Highland Mary. "It's sweet," Mary said when the last note died away. "Well, it's sweet, but it's sad," said Laura. I like Coming Through the Rye." "I'll play it," Pa said, "but I won't sing it alone. It isn't fair for me to do all the entertaining." So gaily all together they sang the lively song, and Laura got up and pretended to be wading across a creek, holding her skirts above her ankles and laughing back over her shoulder, singing, "Ilka lassie had her laddie, nan they say, hey I. Yet all the lads they smile at me when coming through the rye." Well, Laura was that's a sort of a sassy little lyric for Laura to be singing at such a young age. Then Pa's fiddle twinkled a short, gay little notes, and he sang, "I'm Captain Jinks of the Horse Marines. I feed my horse on corn and beans, and I often go beyond my means to court the girls all in their teens. For I'm Captain Jinks of the Horse Marines. I'm captain in the army." Pa nodded to Laura, and she went on singing with the fiddle. "I am Mrs. Jinks of Madison Square. I wear fine clothes and I curl my hair." The captain went on a regular tear, and they kicked him out of the army. It sort of sounds like a Me Too lyric. If you want to know the truth, it's a little risque, I think. "Laura," Ma said, "Charles, do you think that is a nice song for a girl to sing?" "Well, she sang it well," said Pa. "Now, Carrie, you must do your share. Get out here with Laura and see what you can do." He showed them how to hold hands and step to the tune of a polka. Then he played it, and they danced while he sang. "First the heel and then the toe, that's the way the steps do go. First the heel and then the toe, that's the way the steps do go. First the heel and then the toe." Well, faster and faster he played, and faster they danced, and with higher and higher steps, back and forth, and whirling back again till they were breathless and hot with dancing and laughing. "Now then," said Pa, "try a bit of a waltz." And the music flowed smoothly in gliding long waves. "Just float on the music," Pa sang to them softly. "Just float on the music, glide smoothly and turn." Laura and Carrie waltzed across the room and back and around the room, while Grace sat up in Ma's lap and watched them with round eyes, and Mary listened quietly to the music and the dancing feet. "That's fine, girls," said Pa. "We must have more of this winter. You're growing up now, and you must know how to dance. You're going to be fine dancers, both of you." "Oh, Pa, you aren't stopping," Laura cried. "Well, it's long past bedtime," said Pa. "And there'll be plenty more long, cozy evenings before spring." Bitter cold came down the stairway when Laura opened the door. She hurried up the steps, carrying the lighted lantern, and behind her, Mary and Carrie hurried. There was a little warmth around the stovepipe that came up from the room below, and close to it they undressed with shivering fingers, pulled their nightgowns over their underflannels. Chattering, they crawled into their cold beds, and Laura blew out the lantern. In the dark, she and Mary cuddled together, and slowly the blankets lost their chill. All around the house, the black cold of the night was as high as the sky and as wide as the world, and there was nothing in it but the lonely wind. Mary, Laura whispered, I guess the wolves have gone. I didn't hear them, did you? I hope they have, Mary answered drowsily. And that's the end of chapter 15. So much fun. I'm so glad we could do this today. Thank you all for coming and listening. And I think, and I don't know what the rest of Allison's week is looking like. But if she needs more help with this, I'll be happy to step in and read a few more chapters. I'm definitely looking forward to the long winter, which is coming up, and I've got my hat in the ring for that one because I really would like to read it. So listen, all of you, have a good day. I hope you're doing well. We haven't spoken, or I haven't spoken to you in a while. It's been quite a wild ride we've been on as a country, and the world for that matter. Take care of yourselves, and hope you're washing your hands and wearing your masks and practicing your social distancing and just being good. I hope to see you soon, and thanks for listening today. Take care. Bye-bye.